Hans, hello again. It's a handy, it's a handy video again. Today we feel very ashen. I don't have the sofa. It's on my desk, and my keyboard is propped up in the background vertically, which is definitely a backdrop. This is another movie rundown. I'm going to try and do these every month. This is for the month of January. Bit late. I want to do this, right at the end of January, but I've been sick, so I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it now. So I saw 7 films this month. Films. The film in the film. Fuck. Yeah, so 7 films this month in the cinema, and it's Oscar season, so a lot of them are Oscar movies, which is good, which is fine. These are going to be, unlike the sort of yearly one I did, this is going to be a bit more of a sort of in-depth one. I'm going to go over the movies a bit more sort of in-depth, I suppose. It's going to be more like short reviews, really. Let's get started, shall we? First off, Assassin's Creed. Okay, I'm a very big fan of the Assassin's Creed franchise of games. Played all of them. Played all of them except for the one that was like a redress of Assassin's Creed 4. It was Assassin's Creed 4, and I'm going to move the camera forward a bit. Oh, look at that, janky. Assassin's Creed 4, and I haven't played it. Anyway, I know the lore of Assassin's Creed quite well, and I very much like the lore of Assassin's Creed, and I'm not really sure what they were doing. It's a reboot, essentially. It's not set in the universe, but it's a reboot of said universe. So it's not canon for the games. So I don't get what the point of it is, and the entire time I was watching, I was going, why is this a game? The plot was disjointed. It was a fair enough action flick, but I just plot wise it was very dull. It's probably one of the better video game movies, but it's still not good. It does not necessarily good. If you're interested, watch it on Netflix, maybe, but I can't recommend it, to be perfectly honest with you. Number 2, Live by Night. This is Ben Affleck's film. He stars and directs in this film. He plays a gangster, Boston gangster. I quite like this film. This was 4 of these films I saw on the same day, and this was the first film I saw that day. I quite enjoyed Live by Night. It's a bit long. It feels a bit longer than it needs to be, but I still quite enjoyed it. There's nothing I can think that's specifically wrong with it, but at the same time, there's nothing I can think that's specifically great about it either. It's one of those weird films. It's above mediocre. I enjoyed watching it. I wasn't sat there going, I'm bored, but there's nothing about it that makes me want to watch it again necessarily. I can recommend seeing it on Netflix. If it's on Netflix, watch it. It'll be a fine couple of hours. It'll be fine, but it's not. I don't think it's going to win any Oscars. No, I think it should. But Ben Affleck, he's a good actor and director, and it's a reasonably good. Okay, good. Okay, yeah. I'm not going to say much on the ones I have not much to say on. Here we go. Manchester by the Sea. I wasn't going to see this film. This is Casey Affleck. I actually saw a Ben Affleck and Casey Affleck film one after the other, and I love this movie. I think this should win. I'm going to tilt the camera down a bit. Ooh, come on, there we go. That's it. I think Casey Affleck should win Best Actor for this film. It's probably visually the least interesting, at least on the surface. This is a very subtle movie. This has some very clever direction and some very. It's very clever cinematography. The whole thing is meant to feel uncomfortable and awkward. A lot of the editing is jarring. A lot of the angles are somewhat jarring, and it's an interesting movie. Even if you don't like it, you will find it interesting. I think if you think about it for a bit and you actually read into it. If you just go like I think a lot of the mass movie audience and don't think about it, you won't enjoy it. I think a lot of people will come out going, "Oh, that was boring." But you have to, I think, appreciate the subtlety of it. Casey Affleck's performance it's cold, it's distant, it's depressed. It's like the real depressed of getting on with it, and you don't find joy in it. And I haven't seen that in a movie, that kind of, I guess, more somewhat realistic depiction of depression. It sort of captures the awkwardness and tragedy as well, where there are many scenes where there are things that would be used in, there's actual bits of script that, would fit into a comedy movie. and be used as bits of comedy. And they're in this, and they're placed inappropriately during very poignant and emotional scenes. And they're not funny, but they show the awkwardness in real life, like awkwardness that would be present in real life. And especially the awkwardness present in tragedy. It's a very interesting movie, very, very interesting movie. I don't know if it speaks to me a bit more because some bits remind me of some points of not my own life, but I suppose things that have happened in my own life in some regards. And it does flashbacks very well. It's interesting. It's a very interesting film, and I do think he should win Best Actor for it because I like subtlety. Subtlety this movie has in droves, and that might not be for everyone, but I think it's somewhat of a masterpiece because of it. It's a bit new wave in that sense, with its subtlety and with its kind of depiction of awkwardness and such. But don't read up on it. It's a drama. If you want to see it, don't read anything about the plot. Because it's it's one of those plots that sort of unfurls throughout. It starts and you're a little confused, and it slowly unravels itself, and then the picture becomes clear. 3/4 of the way through, and then the tone often changes, and it's a very, very good movie, Manchester by the Sea. I was very surprised. I liked it a lot more than I thoroughly recommend this. I mean, it's not necessarily, I think you'd have to see in the cinema. Obviously, it's not visually interesting. You can watch it perfectly at home, but I do recommend seeing it regardless of when you do. Watch Manchester by the Sea. Watch Manchester by the Sea. That's it. Oh, God, fucking caught the thing. La La Land. God. So yeah, this only came out in January over here. A lot of people said to me in my top movies of 2016 why this wasn't there. It wasn't released in the UK. It didn't release in the UK till January. So it's actually a 2017 movie here. I really enjoyed La La Land. And actually, the director of this, it's the second film since Whiplash. He did another film as well, which is just like a little black and white film. I hadn't seen Whiplash when I'd seen this, so I watched this, and I very, very much enjoyed it. It is a beautiful film. It's a beautiful film. It's up for, I think, 14 Oscars. It can only possibly win 13 because 2 of the nominations are in the same category, so it can only win 13 Oscars. I think it's going to win less than 8 because I don't think it should win the 4, Best Actor, Best Actress, Supporting Actor, and Supporting Actress nominations. I also don't know if it should win Best Original Song necessarily. But it's a very good movie. It's a very clever direction. It's beautiful. It is a beautiful film. If you want to enjoy a beautiful film with a beautiful soundtrack it's a romance. It's a bittersweet romance, and it's somewhat of a classic musical. It's got a tap dancing scene set in Hollywood. But it's a modern director, and it's kind of a modern style of director, and it's a very, very good film, La La Land. I've pre-ordered it. I pre-ordered it on iTunes. I plan to watch it again. I watched Whiplash after I watched La La Land, and I loved Whiplash as well. There's a lot of similar bits of direction in there. Interestingly, the guy who directed this, he's done 3 films now: La La Land, Whiplash, and some other black and white film, which I assume was not a student film, but an indie film. All of them are about jazz musicians. The first one's about a jazz trumpeter. The second one's about a jazz drummer, and this is about a jazz pianist. He likes jazz, fan of jazz. Great. I've listened to the soundtrack a lot. It's just an excellent musical. It's just, even if you don't like musicals, the direction and cinematography is just so excellent that I can fully recommend this film. I'd try and see it in the cinema if you can, because again, it's visually, it's beautiful. So seeing it in sort of 4K, 5K in a cinema on a big screen where you can really appreciate the beautiful way it's set up. It's got the best color grading I think I've ever seen in a film. I don't know. Go to a good cinema and see it on a good screen. Fully recommend La La Land. Love La La Land. Love it to death. Triple X. There is a Return of Xander Cage. This was the last movie I saw. I saw Live by Night, Manchester by the Sea, and La La Land all on the same day. And I was going to go home because it was nearing sort of late, and I saw this was on as I was leaving, and I went, fuck it, I've seen 3 movies, I might as well see a 4th, and by God, this is shit. This is a shit movie. This is a shit movie. I haven't seen any of the previous Triple X movies, but the whole gimmick is they're overly stupidly ridiculous. clearly unrealistically ridiculous. Like there's a scene where they're on like dirt bikes, and then they go into the ocean and they sort of get little skis on them, and then they sort of jet ski on these. And there's a bit where he's skiing down a mountain in a jungle. He's skiing in a jungle. It's I can suspend my disbelief, right? But there's a point when you're getting a bit too ridiculous, and I'm not enjoying it anymore. And you know, it was a very stupid movie, and that's what it was aiming for, and that's good, and that's okay. Some scenes I like that. I like the skiing down the jungle in the jungle scene. That was just silly and ridiculous. But there's a point in a movie where if everything's silly and ridiculous, I can't appreciate it. It's kind of the Saints Row sort of 4 problem, you know, whereby there's no contrast to the ridiculousness, so it just becomes a bit stale. The acting, I don't think, was very good by a lot of them. The story was terrible. I cannot recommend Triple X: The Return. It's not even It's not even visually good as an action movie, really. It's just not a very good movie. I do not recommend Triple X: The Return of Xander Cage. Now, Jackie. There we go, cool. Jackie, this is a Natalie Portman film. This is up for a couple of Oscars. It's about Jackie Kennedy, JFK's wife. And this reminded me of Sully in a lot of ways, in that it's very much a story that I feel, when I was watching it, I was going, okay, why? Like, there's no conflict, there's no necessarily learning. I don't know what. It's not a bad movie by any stretch. A performance is very good. The way the movie's shot is very good. They combine some old footage from JFK's assassination and subsequent funeral. They combine that with scenes, bits from the movie. They've even, for example, there was a like TV interview with Jackie Kennedy going around the restored White House, and they redid some of the shots from that exactly, and script exactly. Very weird. It was a very weird film. I can't really recommend it. I mean, John Hurt's in it. So it's really probably one of John Hurt's last films, because he just died, didn't he? So John Hurt's in it. He plays a priest. Her performance is very good. I just don't think the movie was terribly interesting, because I didn't really learn. I learned Jackie Kennedy did things, I guess. It's a very forgettable movie. I think is Jackie. It'd be a lovely score, shot well. I don't know why it's not up for costume design. I think it might be. I don't know. Is it? Fuck, I don't know. I need to look at the Oscar thing. Either way, I don't necessarily reckon. There was nothing bad about it. I thought it was reasonably. It was well produced. It was well acted. I just can't recommend it. It just wasn't very interesting conceptually. I don't know. I mean, if it's your cup of tea, you'll know it's your cup of tea. But I don't know. And last but not least, Hacksaw Ridge. Mel Gibson directed this film. It stars Andrew Garfield, also famous, not famous for, but he was Spider-Man. He was Spider-Man along with I think interestingly, right? Spider-Man and fucking what's her name? Not Sarah Jane. Either way, they're both up for Oscars this year, leading Oscars for 2 Oscar films, which is interesting how they went from Gwen Stacy. They went from Spider-Man to proper big Oscar films. Hacksaw Ridge, it was good. It's a true story about a soldier in World War I who wanted to join the army as a combat medic, but never fire a gun, and he didn't want to pick up a gun, he didn't want to do that. It's about his sort of situation. It's about how he got through that, and it's an interesting story, and it's well shot. I feel tonally it's a bit off, because it's World War I, horrible war, right? It's sort of what I was worried about with Battlefield 1 as well. Horrible war. And there are scenes of just people dying in horrible ways, really horrible, like kind of like full on, the kind of those scenes you've seen in other, I can't even remember the fucking name for the life of me, but other sort of like war films, just the horrors of war. And the tone of the movie is hopeful. Right, it's a hopeful movie. The entire tone seems hopeful, and even when people are being murdered brutally, and the Japanese are killing themselves, and there's people screaming and they're dying, and it's horrible. The tone is hopeful, and it kind of feels a bit. The tone feels a bit off. Is my point. It doesn't have the contrast. Like, if it was depressing and then hopeful, or it was hope within depression, or it was hope within horror, whatever, that'd be good. But it didn't really feel like that. It just felt hopeful, and it felt optimistic, and it felt cuddly, nice, but the shots you were watching weren't nice for a lot of the time. You know, he's pulling people out and he's saving them. You know, amazing, good, amazing story. But it rubbed me the wrong way a bit. I don't know. I just felt the tone was a bit off for a lot of it. It's a fine enough movie. I think it's good. I think it's worth watching. Maybe not in the cinema. Maybe watch it when it's on Netflix. But the tone was a bit off. I felt the tone was a bit off. If you've seen it, please let me know what you think when I say the tone's a bit off. I don't know if that's just me. I don't know, but I just felt the tone. I don't know. It's hard to, like, all of these horrible things he's going through, and all the horrible things in the war, and it's kind of, they're being shot horrible in it, but it's kind of got a light heart. I don't know if Andrew Garfield's performance was necessarily the best. Well, he was very good near the start of the movie, but sort of, especially when he's actually in Hacksaw Ridge. Not Hacksaw Ridge. Is it Hacksaw Ridge? Hacksaw Ridge? Yeah, sure, it's Hacksaw Ridge. When he's sort of actually pulling people out, he didn't. I wasn't looking at him going, this is a man who's just spent 2 days literally alone, surrounded by corpses, constantly worried about being killed, getting people out because he's a good person. It didn't feel like that. It just felt like he just felt cool, like a nice man, rather than someone going through extreme hardship, a terrifying situation, horrible situation. It didn't. At no point, like Andrew Garfield, he always felt like he was like, hey, yeah, we, happy, and I don't know. It's a weird film, Hacksaw Ridge. Anyway, that was my movie rundown for January 2017. If you like these, let me know, because I'm going to try and do these every month. Every month, probably. Thumbnail. Thumbnail. Fuck. Oh well. Thank you. What? Thanks for watching. Fuck off. Jesus.